Every piece of self-improvement content you've ever consumed agrees on a thing about your pain. Fix it, reduce it, optimize it away. And if you are still hurting after routines and the systems and the mindset shifts, the conclusion is obvious. You must be doing it wrong. I want to give you the opposite possibility. Not that pain is good. I'm not going to romanticize suffering on camera, but that some pain is not a malfunction. It's a process, and every attempt to fix it slows the process down. There's one question that separates the two kinds. Ask it honestly and you will know within about a minute whether the thing you are in right now is damage or transformation. I'll give you the question, but not yet, because I couldn't ask it myself for years. And the reason I couldn't is the actual story here. So let me tell you what it feels like when the structures of who you are stops holding. And I've been through psychosis, and I'm not going to give you clinical description. You can find that anywhere. What it feels like from the inside is this: reality stops being reliable, not the world outside. The framework you use to interpret it, the things you believe in yourself, that you have a solid perspective, that your perception could be trusted, that there was a stable you doing the perceiving. All of it revealed as a provisional, as assembled as something that can, under enough pressure, come apart in your hands, which is terrifying. And also it took me a long time to be able to say this completely accurate, because the structure that broke down, a structure that had been assembled mostly out of other people's expectations.
It is a lie. They know.
A self built from what was needed of me, held together by escape when it strained. That's what was under the pressure. That's what came apart. While it was happening, I wanted one thing: for it to stop. That's the only report from inside it. No insight, no perspective, just a person wanting the ground back. Then came the years after, and here's the part I actually want you to hear, because I think it's a more common experience, more common than a psychosis by far. I spent those years trying to get back to the person before, rebuilding the exact structure that had been collapsed. Thicker walls this time, tighter control, more certainty, more systems, all of it in service of one goal: never let that happen again.
Subscribe on ShigaPOV channel. Subscribe on ShigaPOV channel.
I was, with enormous effort and sincerity, reconstructing the thing that needed to fall. That was real damage, not the collapse, the reconstruction. Years spent reconstructing a house that had been condemned for a good reason, and calling it repair work recovery. So what finally stopped me? A distinction I'd never heard anyone make. It changed everything, and it's the reason this video exists. Start with the research, because it isn't a fringe idea. In the 19th, the psychologists Tedeschi and Calhoun named something they kept finding in the data. People who go through severe suffering don't only return to a baseline. A significant portion grow past it. Deeper self-knowledge, clearer values, more capacity for meaning, and more connection than they had before. Post-traumatic growth. Not everyone, not automatically, not without work, but often enough to become one of the most studied effects in the field. And notice the mechanism carefully, because this is where the industry gets it backward. The suffering didn't cause the growth. The suffering created conditions in which growth became possible. Something had to come apart for anything new to be built. Which brings the distinction. There are two kinds of suffering, and they feel identical from the inside. Damage, pain that isn't pointing at anything, injury that needs tending, treatment or a professional support, real care. Not everything painful is meaningful, and pretending otherwise is its own cruelty. Signals the specific pain that arrives when a part of your life is trying to change and the old structure is resisting the change. That's not injury, that's a tension in a system in a mid-transformation. Same feeling, completely different meaning. And here's how you tell them apart. The question I promised you. Damage stays the same, signal changes when you engage with it. That's it, damage pain is static. It hurts identically whether you look at it or run from it. It reveals nothing about itself over time. Signal pain moves the moment you stop running. It shifts, it clarifies, it starts to pointing at something specific, a relationship, a pattern, a version of you that's expired. Sit with damage and it just hurt. Sit with signal and it start talking. I couldn't ask that question for years, and now the reason is obvious. I was never still long enough to see whether my pain changed when I engaged with it. I was running entire time, rebuilding, controlling, escaping. You cannot tell which kind of pain you are in while sprinting away from it. If you are sitting there, running your own pain through this test right now, like button help this reach the next person. Being told they're suffering means they are failing. And comment below which kind you are in, damage or signal. Sometimes naming it is where the whole thing turned. Frankl, who came out from the camps and built a framework from it, put it in a line I keep coming back to. Suffering stops being suffering the moment it finds the meaning. And I don't read that as an instruction to manufacture meaning for every hard thing. I read it as a signal pain specifically. That kind already has meaning. It means something fixed is becoming fluid. Something that needed to move is finally moving. Now why nobody in your feed made this distinction? Because signal pain is unsellable. You cannot optimize it, shortcut it, or route around it with a morning routine. The whole point of it is that it must be passed through. So the industry does the only commercially viable thing. It reclassifies the process as a problem and sells you the solution. And you spend years solving something that was never a problem, which is almost exactly the description of my reconstruction years. So what do you actually do instead? 3 things. First, stop using the absence of pain as your progress metric. This is the big one. If comfort is your only gauge of whether life is working, you will systematically avoid all the processes that requires discomfort to complete, and those are most processes that matter. Swap metric, not how much does this hurt, but is anything moving? Am I different from 6 months ago?
That's a 2-year of workout.
Is the pain pointing at something that's specific than it used to? Growth is measured in movement, never in comfort. I've been comfortable in periods when nothing in me was moving. That's not health, that's a storage. Second, ask the pain what it's pointing at out loud. Not how do I make this stop. Other question, what are you showing me? Sit with it long enough for sensation to become information. And here's what surprised me most when I finally did this. Signal pain almost always knows exactly what it's pointing at, and you almost always already knew that. You've known for a while. The pain isn't delivering news, it's making news impossible to keep ignoring. Third, learn to tolerate the unfinished. Transformation has a middle, and the middle is the worst part. The old structure is gone, and the new one hasn't formed. Nobody warns you about the middle.
You are not enough.
It's where most people turn around and rebuild the old thing exactly like I did, because unfinished felt unbearable.
So that's the plan?
And the old structure at least had a shape. The capacity to stay in the middle, to be between who you were and who you are becoming, without fleeing backward, is the single most important skill in real change. Not the capacity to feel no pain, the capacity to feel it and remain. And there is an alternative of all of this. Always. You can stop the pain by stopping the change. That option is real and it's available today. It just carries a cost, and the cost is quiet and it collects later. I'll tell you exactly when it collects right now. The version of me that went through that collapse didn't survive it. Not in a way we mean survival. He didn't come out intact, he came out different. And something in his structure never reassembled in the original shape. I grieved that for years, treated the difference as damage, tried to get him back. He was the problem. That's the whole thing I wish someone had taught me. The person I was trying to restore was the one who needed to end. And the cost of the unchanged life, here's when it collects. Not dramatically, it shows up at 3 a.m. in the specific silence of a life that stayed the same when it needed to move. That's the bill. It's quiet, it's late, and it's much larger than the pain you avoided. So if everything is falling apart right now, I can't promise you it's a good kind. Sometimes it's damage, and damage deserves care. Real care from real people. And there is no shame in that being the answer. But run the question first. Does it stay the same when you turn toward it, or does it start pointing somewhere? Because if it points, you are not failing. Something in you exactly under the pressure it takes to become different, and the only way to stop pressure is to stop the becoming. Everything got worse for me before any of this made sense. That turned out to be a sign that it was working. Tell me in comments what period of suffering in your life turned out to be becoming of someone. I want to read those. Subscribe and like. So let's rise together. See you in the next one. Have a good flight, fam.